this publicly a few times, but I just want to publicly acknowledge all the efforts and work of those individuals who worked throughout the summer with doing a yeoman's job with a very, very intense reorganization. And we know that that reorganization, of course, has not been perfect, but there's been many hours of hard work done by some fantastic individuals, and I've acknowledged it previously, and I would like to just do so again. Madam President, that's all my comment for this evening.
Okay. Public comment not to exceed 60 minutes, not to exceed 4 minutes speaking time.
And I heard, Superintendent, you thanked a lot of people for the hours they put in the summertime for, getting a reorganization. But, my son go to Stewart, the Early Childhood Development Center, and if you was out there Friday, you can't tell that y'all put no hours in. Like, we saw lines down the block, kids couldn't even, some of these kids, this is their first time, they didn't go to daycare or preschool. This is their first time being separated from their parents. They couldn't walk their parents in. Like, mom was crying, kids was crying, like, it was a bad situation. So you couldn't tell no one out there that y'all even put an inkling of thought into it. And the excuses that I got was the weather. It wasn't raining out there, they being in school. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's one issue. Another issue is I live in Garfield East, my school is around the corner from my house. And what's gonna happen to that building? Because over time, I came from, I just moved out here like 2 years ago. I was from North Philly. So I seen schools and buildings get dilapidated and stuff start happening to them that bring down a property value. So.
Thank you.
And I am concerned about this district because I went to school here when we were number 1, number 2. Now, in the state of New Jersey, we are at the bottom of the totem pole. I have a problem with transportation. You guys had all year, the whole summer, to get transportation together. My grandson, right here, he's 6 years old. He went to Stewart Elementary School, which was the greatest elementary school in the district. Y'all might think different. It's my opinion. He's 6. He's not walking from Buckingham to Pennypacker. He's by himself. Number 2, my grandson right here, he's 11. This is his first year in Levitt. His bus driver's so stupid that he ended up in West Hampton today, and he didn't get home until 3:15. I'm wondering, where's my child? Issue number 3, we closed several elementary schools that shouldn't have been closed. You did an overhaul at Brookbine Elementary, so Hawthorne was there until Hawthorne got fixed. We're wasting buildings, we're wasting money. I am a taxpayer in Willingboro.
I just moved from Pennsylvania back to Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl originally, but I just moved back to Jersey and just bought a house out here, and I experienced a bad situation here. I transferred my daughter from Pennsylvania over here, and everything was unorganized. They gave her a student ID on the application when you filled it out to register her here. And ever since then, her ID wasn't registered nowhere I went. I went to get her school ID. They couldn't see her in the system, some Genesis system or whatever system they need putting her in. They couldn't find her in the Genesis system. Only one person is responsible for putting IDs in the school system, which is ridiculous. I don't understand why one person has a particular code for admitting these students into school. It's totally ridiculous. And another thing is, I had to pay for the Chromebook. I was unable to do that because your system wouldn't allow her a student ID number to get into the system. So everything went terrible. It was horrible. And my daughter is like, she's in a prison right now. She goes to the high school and she tells me all the bad things that happen. You got police in the classrooms. She can't use the bathrooms. And she got to wait outside from 6 to 7:05 where she...
I
just moved here in January. First, I wanted to talk about what happened in J.C. Stewart on Friday and today. My 4-year-old does not go to J.C. Stewart, but my cousin's son does. And what we saw on Friday and today made me so happy that I didn't put my 4-year-old in that school. I saw children that were being placed on buses when their parents were waiting for them at the school, and they should have never been placed on buses. I saw a parent who was 8 months pregnant, where they searched 4 buses for her child, and she almost went into labor. I saw parents, and I went to the parking lot, I had to meet my cousin because she was so hysterical. Parents being told to leave their children at the front door when they couldn't even meet the teacher. First of all, that's dangerous. How does the teacher know who to give our children to at the end of the day if they didn't see our faces in the morning? First of all, I just bought a house here, so we're paying a mortgage. Now I have to pay for Catholic school for my 4-year-old, and thank the Lord that my son passed the test and he got into BCIT. I'm new here, like I said, but I mean, this is not the way things should function. People gotta talk and communicate and get things together because our kids should be safe, and the parents should feel safe leaving their kids there. That's it.
Thank you.
This is my daughter's first year in school, especially public school. She was in daycare, she was. But it was a more secure place. Daycare was more secure than public school. But Friday, as everybody else said, we got there. I did get the email stating that you guys were gonna have everything at the building. I didn't know it was gonna go the way it went. My whole thing is, my daughter, she's only 4. Seeing a line from the door down to like basically the traffic light of parents and their children who are only, 4 and 5, standing there, just waiting to get in. They have 2 different lines. If you know your teacher, this is your line. If you don't know your teacher, this is your line. My whole thing is, once we did get to the front door, they were just taking our kids by their hands saying, come in, your teacher's in this office. How do we know who their teacher is? I don't know the teacher. I don't know what part she came from. I know some of the J.C. Stewart teachers only because my other child did go there. How do I know that my child's gonna be okay once I leave these doors? She's not gonna be okay. There's no nurse supplies. The nurse said, I don't even know where my paperwork is. That's exactly what she said to me. She said, I'll send it home. My daughter came home that day. No administration for medication or EpiPen, Benadryl, nothing. Okay, I called the school. Principal called me back. Principal never called me. So today, new day, nothing, still came home. Now I have to take off a day of work to go there just to sign a form saying that my child can get her EpiPen, she can get her medication, which is not fair to me. That's 8 hours out of my check, 8 hours out of my day. So, as far as everything else, is like, I don't know if it's just not put together right now. I don't know what it is, but it's like, we're giving you guys our children for different reasons. For education, number 1. Number 2, a secure place for our children to learn, to be there, to be happy. My daughter was excited until 2 hours she was standing in line to get into school. And now she wants to go home. She didn't want to be there. It was a lot. And my whole concern is, it's not just my child, other people's children as well. People that I know, kids were sent on buses. Kids were mixed up because of name, because you didn't check names. You guys are saying, oh, your child's name is what? Not even asking the last name. Not even asking for my ID when to pick up my child. Anybody can get my kid, because at the end of the day, you guys are just passing them to anybody anyway. So it's like, oh, this your child? A 4-year-old, they're gonna know their parent. But if you're just handing it to anybody and walking off to the next child, they're not gonna know what's going on. So my whole problem with the Willingboro district is, you guys have to put more like effort into these children, because they don't know. We don't know. We didn't know we was gonna walk into that. I thought it was gonna be blacktop, a paper in their hand saying, I'm your teacher. No, we walk in, stand here. I remember when I went to Bookbinder, you stood in the blacktop, they had a little board in their hand, this is so-and-so, you stand in line, you wait to go in the building, your child can go with you. You can go with your child. But Friday and today was kind of like, it was a lot. And even picking her up on Friday. They're like, oh, what's your kid's name? You don't know my child's name? It's like, okay, I'll give it to you. Oh, she's over here. You take me to kindergarten. She's in pre-K 4. There's no reason why I should be over here looking for my kid. It was a lot.
Thank you.
First thing I'm going to say, I do agree with the parents. What happened on Friday was unacceptable. I mean, when I got there, I was riled up. I was like, ooh, Dr. Taylor, I'm going to be writing him. This is going to be a problem. But when I got into the building, I felt so good. And I was able to meet the teacher. I was one of the parents that was able to meet the teachers. I felt that was taken away from a lot of the parents. Everybody should should have been able to go in and meet the teachers. The place is so warm and filling because I am a pre-K teacher and I've been teaching for 20 years. And that was the best feeling ever. You know, great ideas for me even to step up my game as a teacher for the early childhood setting. They had no plan for the kindergartners. They just told us, get online. If you know the teacher, get on this line, get on the other line. So that was, you know, a downfall that I had. I love the teacher that my child has. Another bad thing I have to talk about, my niece got lost on the bus. They have her mixed up with another child. One thing I'm going to talk about also is the honor classes. Why did y'all take out those honor classes in middle school? But if you take out those honors classes, y'all, they're not going to be ready.
Thank you.
I had a question also. Last year my son went to Levitt and he also had a bus to go to Levitt. This year, my son who goes to J.C. Stewart, there was no notification sent out for him to be on any type of bus. So they're in the before and after program. He was placed on the bus to go, I don't know where. So we didn't know where he was for a matter of time, but we ended up having his sister remove him off that bus and then he got on the before and after program. But there was no notification if they're going to get on the bus, if they're supposed to be where. So I spoke with the teacher earlier today and she said, oh, we got this list from Country Club. And I said, I never authorized my son to be on any other bus. He's always supposed to be on the before and after care bus. So she's like, well, this is just what they gave us. So I'm just trying to figure out how they get these names on this list and how these kids get put on these buses and they don't even know where they're supposed to be. He's 4, he's never been on a bus, 5, never been on a bus. And he's used to being at Twin Hills where he has his other siblings where if he doesn't know, he can rely on his other siblings. So I'm just confused as to how this list is put together, who tells them what bus they have to get on, and then there's no notification to the parents because I had no clue that he was going to be put on any bus because he was signing up for before and after care. And they provide transportation to and from school. So that was really my only concern. I mean, other parents have stated the other issues with the other schools. I'm not going to rehash that. But so that was just a concern for me because I didn't know how they put together this list for these kids, especially being in a brand new school that they really don't know. So that was just my only concern.
Thank you.
For those who were not here in the beginning and who don't normally come to these meetings, the way that our protocol goes, as you observed, as we have public comment, I take copious notes. The board members are taking notes as well. Our team is taking notes, and that's why we ask you to give us your name at the beginning of your statement. So we know who we're talking to. We know if there are questions that cannot be answered here, we can reach out to you and give you those answers. There are 14 public comments, so please bear with me and be patient with me as I try to give you detailed responses to them. So just for a little bit of context, I see some faces that I haven't seen before, meaning that you probably were not a part of the 7 or 8 budget meetings that we had in this meeting and across the hall over there. Somebody smiled over there because you were at all those budget meetings, right? Our budget season is early winter to late spring, and this was an especially arduous budget season for us because for those who may not know, who haven't kept up with some of the news and things that are happening, there was an expansion allowed for one of our local charter schools. And that expansion wasn't just the number of kids who go there, 180 more students, but it cost our district $3 million. And so during that budget season, the charge that I have and the charge that our team has and that our board holds us accountable for is that even though you have to deal with that, you can't leave our kids behind. We want to see advancements even though we have to deal with those type of cuts. And so we had many, many budget meetings and planning meetings and talked about the different scenarios and what can you do as a district when you're losing funds to still be competitive. That's the word that we use often because we're in the era of school choice right now. Parents can choose to go other places. And we've already seen what can happen when parents are given choices and they leave your district. You leave and the funding leaves. The funding leaves, we have to make very difficult choices with that. So in looking at some of your questions in that context, just know that our reorganization was based on that. And it was based on trying to take those lemons and be innovative and make lemonade. We've heard from other individuals in the past about being more competitive and being innovative. And we understand that change is difficult, and we understand that no one wants to have a group of angry parents, angry 3 and 4 and 5-year-old parents. I taught kindergarten in the beginning of my career, and I have a child. So know that no one up here came here or is sitting here with the intention of hurting your child. And I heard comments about the lack of planning, and when I tell you that planning was done and done and done and done, and given and given and given and revised and revised, I'm not one to give excuses. I just want you to know that, excuse me? I can't hear you, Ms. Hughley. Ms. Hughley, you need to leave. You can't call me a liar and stay in this room. You can leave, please. Officers, I can't continue with someone sitting in front of me and calling me a liar.
Serrano. That's a bag.
All right, thank you. I will continue. So going through our notes here, there were some comments about our new curriculum. Ms. Brown, are you still here? About the new curriculum, and we're excited about it as well. We made a significant investment in our new curriculum because we believe, again, in being innovative and trying to present to our children the best that they can be. There was a comment about a budget deficit. I just want to be careful with the words that we use, right? So a budget deficit means that at the end of your budget season, you don't have enough money to open your school district. Versus like a budget shortfall, which is what I just described, that money was taken out of our normal funds to support the charter school that we spoke about. So we didn't have a deficit, we had a shortfall that we filled in with our plan moving forward. For those who made the comments about the first day at J.C. Stewart, and if I was there, and I was also there with a few of our board members who were doing school visits with me at that time. And we saw the frustration, and again, we're not here to give excuses. We're not here to talk about circumstances. We're here to do better, and we're here to be better for you. And for those who were there today, I hope you saw a marked improvement. And those are the comments that were given to me by those parents who were there today. There were comments about Garfield East and the decision to close Garfield East and could it reopen. One of the things that's in this agenda is a grant that we won to expand early childhood even further, to add 4 classes to pre-K4 and pre-K3. Pre-K3, I apologize, and so the board is going to consider whether to accept that grant, and one consideration could be using Garfield East as a satellite site for those 4 classes, because our elementary schools and J.C. Stewart and even Lebanon is getting super full. So that would probably be the ideal place because of the requirements of that grant that include bathrooms in those classrooms. There were questions about transportation, and for those who have not been here when we talked about this before, the state law says that we have to give transportation to families that are 2.2 miles away from their school. We also try to look at major thoroughfares that kids have to cross, like Beverly Rancocas, for example. And so we are able to give courtesy busing to students who are not 2 miles away if it's considered to be a danger. And our bus service is through a vendor. So when you ask about the specific driver, those drivers don't work for us, they work for the vendor, but the vendor is very responsive. So if you have an issue with a particular driver, a particular route, we can track that route down through our GPS and literally see how fast they're going on any particular street, how late they are, how early they are. So please feel free to email me directly or our supervisor, Mr. Silva, and we can give you very specific feedback about transportation. There was a comment about using metal detectors in our high school. And years ago, even prior to my arrival, that was a tough choice that this Board of Education and previous administration had to make, because no one wants their child to feel as though they're going into a dangerous situation. We've had other discussions about this, and I would always err on the side of safety and the deterrence that it gives for someone who's trying to harm a student to know that they have to go through a metal detector. We've been very fortunate, knock on wood, that we haven't had any problem with firearms in our district, but we want to keep it that way, especially when it comes to our high school and the influences that outsiders can have there. Nurses and medication, etc. Dr. Alegria, who's our special services director, where Dr. Alegria, and she is the person who's also over our nurses. And she's taking notes about the concerns of the parent who spoke about medication and that type of thing. And there have been 3 nurses supporting J.C. Stewart during the transition. And she has made note of the concern of the parent who spoke. It was fantastic to hear positive feedback about Dr. Cora Waters and Mrs. Lucas, who've taken on a yeoman's job at J.C. Stewart, and we know are going to be successful. But it was wonderful to hear that great feedback. In hearing the discussion about honors classes, I think that there may be some confusion about, are we referencing the TOPS courses that were at the Levitt building that were servicing the elementary schools? Are we talking about particular honors courses at the 5-6 building or at Memorial 7-8 building? Because we'll go back and investigate what you're referencing, but for those who may not be aware, in our former design, there were TOPS teachers who did gifted and talented classes for the elementary grades, 3rd through 5th grade. Those teachers, one of them each is in each of the elementary schools. The Algebra 1 is the key component for honors classes at the middle level, because Algebra 1 is really a high school course. But if you can take Algebra 1 in middle school, it gives you a head start towards AP courses. And so those courses are still in place at the middle school, and of course the AP courses are still in place at the high school. But I will go back and speak with those principals that are involved. I don't believe we have removed any honors courses, but the reorganization and changing where the grades are may have some parents who used to have TOPS concerned about not having TOPS in the current 5-6 alignment. The concern about the hours that schools operate, that is not a very easy thing to change. The schools and their hours of operation, it drives the transportation, it drives the contractual hours for our employees. It's not something that we can just snap our fingers and change. We know that there's been some research done about starting early and how it impacts different age students. Like, for example, there's a push happening in some places to start high school later. That high school kids or adolescents need more rest, but they start the earliest. So why don't we start them the latest? And we've looked at that as well, but there's been no movement, significantly around the state for that. And one of the reasons that we have to start at the time that we do is to compensate all the transportation that has to happen with those students coming to schools and being able to pick up other students and then go out and pick up others for the other schools. But I think that the board always considers these type of comments, and we talk about what the unintentional consequences are. And just know that those decisions on what time school starts are like a jigsaw puzzle. If you move one, you're affecting all the others. There were a couple of parents who talked about not getting things in the mail, not getting bus schedules or not getting academic schedules. I know firsthand that I received verification of what goes out, and it goes out based on your address in Genesis. And so my first request to you, if you didn't receive anything in the mail, is to check with your home school about the address that's currently in Genesis. The same thing for when we do robocalls. If you don't receive robocalls for major events that are happening, we use Genesis as the platform that generates all that information. I think I spoke about the criteria for transportation for the gentleman who asked about that. But again, the state rule is 2.2 miles. If you're more than 2.2 miles away, you're given transportation. Now, there are other circumstances that, depending on the danger of the route or just a plethora of other reasons that can be taken into consideration. But when it comes to the legal criteria that you asked for, the 2.2 miles is the criteria. And we have this huge transportation software. We did a presentation using it last spring to show and capture where 2.2 miles is in consideration to the other schools. And someone also asked about how do you determine what student goes to what building. I feel like I live closer to this school than that school, but I'm going to this school. Know that there is a district map on our website that was recently amended. And part of that is leveling the schools. You can't have two schools that are elementary schools that have 400 to 500 kids, and then one that has 200. So though you may live closer to one school, we have to balance the enrollment to be able to have equity when it comes to both the class sizes and the school-wide enrollment. Still here, asked about, I didn't authorize my student to be on a bus. And so one important piece that's on the bottom of every bus notification that goes out, if you do not want busing, put it in writing and send it back to us. If you don't want busing, it says on there, you have to put that in writing and send it back to us. If we had to ask every single parent to authorize busing after sending out their busing notification, we had to take in 3,000 phone calls. Regarding the air conditioning at Levitt, for those who weren't around in 2010, 2011, when the community voted to support the bond referendum that repaired and refurbished all of the buildings, 15 classrooms in Levitt were not giving air conditioners. Of course, they have the unit ventilators that can support air conditioners, but up until this year, those rooms were not being utilized. Of course, they had heating units in those rooms, and we received quotes on what it would take to put AC units in those rooms. Some parents have emailed me and asked me about taking the individual units out of Garfield East and putting them in Levitt, but they're not compatible units. Those windows are custom, and we're far from perfect, but we are responsive, we listen, and we adjust. And I can guarantee you that those folks who were at J.C. Stewart today, their experience was much improved. And tomorrow it will be much more improved. And that is my promise to you. Madam President, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Dr.
Just wanted to let the parents know that we have a new website. And some of the concerns that you were asking about, some of that information you will be able to find on the new website. If you have challenges navigating, you can always call into the main office and they'll help you navigate the new system. There was a question by one of the parents about one of the math teachers being missing. Could you speak to that?
I didn't, because I didn't get specific information on what school it was and what. We do have, I think, 3 or 4 vacancies in our district. Is that okay? And so basically, there probably have 3 or 4 vacancies now, and this is a fluid. People retire, people resign, etc. And we're constantly doing interviews to fill those vacancies. But I don't believe that we have a math vacancy right now at the Levitt building. Now, the way that I took that was that the scheduler said that it was being said, the mom was saying that there's a scheduled snafu or something like that, that there's an empty slot and the student might end up being a helper in the guidance office, and that happens sometimes for students who are more on a high school level. But the principal's here, I know she took note of that, but I just wasn't clear on that, but thank you for that question. And also the question about the bicycle helmets. That's not, it's nothing to do with education. It's all about gross motor skills. The students ride trikes, and that's how they get their exercise, and it's part of the state curriculum that we adopted. And I know it's different. When I was little, I never had a helmet, even when I was 13, 14, 15, but it's us using an abundance of caution. And at the back of school night, you'll be able to ask all those kinds of questions in the next week or so. And of course, you can always email, and we are very responsive to that.
There are several parents who raised questions about honors courses, and back in the spring, our new curriculum director, Mr. Zalika, did a presentation, and one of the things that he spoke about was the need to revamp the entire curriculum and to raise the rigor across the district. In his presentation, he was looking at mark scores, and I can remember one specific slide in his presentation. There were like 0% students proficient in algebra. And what we can see from that is that if we have students taking honors courses, somebody should be proficient. Because if you are truly taking a course that is an honors course and the level of rigor is there, somebody would be proficient in algebra. So the concern was that we had honors courses, but they're honors courses in name only. And that doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do the kid any good. It gives parents a false sense of what their kids are really learning. If we could give every student in the district an A, and every parent could be happy and say, my kid is on the honor roll, but what does that A really mean if the content isn't there, if the knowledge isn't there, if the kids aren't really learning? So our focus has to become improving the curriculum across the board. Mr. Zalika is not here tonight, and if anyone had any questions about the new curriculum, which the curriculum department, and there were several teachers who worked really hard on the curriculum. I believe that all of the curriculum is going to be on the website if it's not already. You can also contact Mr. Zalika directly if you have any questions, or maybe he can make that presentation that he did in the spring available so that you can have more information about it. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that our kids are competitive across the county and across the state. And if we say your kid is in an honors class and has straight A's, but they are competing with kids in other districts and they can't compete, what good does that do them if they're not really getting the level of rigor that they need? And so that's why they're revamping the curriculum. Mr. Zalika was hired at the end of last year. He hasn't even been here for a full year yet. I think we have to give him some time to get the curriculum implemented and work out the kinks and everything. But I'm confident that parents are going to be really happy with what they've done this year with the curriculum and improving the education for all students in Willingboro and making sure that everybody is getting what they need. So,
Madam President, I just want to make sure that we all leave with the correct information. And I agree, Ms. Williams, that the curriculum department that the board funded did a fantastic job, led by Mrs. Zalika, and there was training all summer and continuing on our new curriculum. It was written by some of our teachers served as curriculum writers. They were trained and they would learn how to take those state standards and make them user-friendly. And it's going to be on EdConnect on our website, and anyone can go on and view the guidelines. I saw a nice email from one of our parents who attended the curriculum night presentation. But I know he gave a presentation about honors courses, and we talked about that, but the honors courses were not removed as a result of that presentation. We'll make sure everyone leaves with the correct information, that's all.
Mr. McKenzie?
Thank you. I also had the privilege of attending the curriculum presentation together, this was last week. It was a very good presentation, a lot of good resources, good information provided. And Mr. Zalika did went out and demonstrated how every subject for every grade level, the curriculum for every subject, every grade level is available on the district website. So once again, if you get drilled down to the specifics as to what themes or topics will be covered in the time period, that's detailed in the curriculum, so you would be able to see that for your child, your student, for their grade level. And it's a way, it's presented in a way that you will know what information, what topic areas will be covered, and what the assessments will be based on. One thing that one of the speakers raised was the fact that homework will only be assigned in, I think she said, once per week. Mr. Zerwinka did speak to that, but that's not exactly what he said to my hearing. What he said was that for each subject, for each class, homework will be assigned a minimum of once per week. And what he did was he was demonstrating that that's an improvement over where we were. This school board, this school district, and whatever curriculum we had in the past had no requirements for homework at all. So once again, we can't go from 1 to 100, from 0 to 100, but going from 0 to 1 for every class, every subject, in every school, that's a lot. And once again, what you don't want to do is overburden the students with homework so that they're receiving a massive amount of homework in every subject every night of the week. So once again, with the teachers working in teams, hopefully they'll be able to work together to make sure that students aren't being overwhelmed with homework and thus not being able to master the material. One thing that, I just want to say this before I forget. Someone asked why we started the school year with a half day on Friday.
Sure.
Dr. Taylor, you didn't speak to
Thank
that.
you, yes. Thank you for reminding me, sir. Every year, as long as I've been here, we work with a committee when it comes to our calendar. It's not a one-person decision. We have members from the teachers' organization, members from the administrators' organization, and of course, folks from central administration. And we sit in multiple meetings to talk about the calendar because it is different every year. One of our contract stipulations is that we cannot bring teachers back before Labor Day. And this year, Labor Day was very late, and so for us, we would normally have professional development on Tuesday, Wednesday, and bring back students on Thursday and Friday, early dismissal days, for the exact reason that we spoke about being too hot, right? Not every elementary school has air conditioners. Those are purchased by PTAs. So that has been a long-standing tradition. As Mr. McKenzie just spoke of, we had a huge adoption of curriculum and text, and we wanted to give our teachers an extra day for their professional development so that everyone was able to start successfully with their students. And so instead of us holding students and families off until that following Monday, we thought the best decision would be for Friday because we had so many changes and so many things that we were excited about, so many improvements. We wanted to make sure that there weren't hiccups, and if there were, that we had time to recover as we did.
Yes. Thank you. Earlier today, I was reading an article, I think it was in the Washington Post, about why our school years run on agricultural calendar. And why our school days the hours of the school day don't coincide with hours in the typical work day, and the strain that puts on families. So I just want to say that, I hear what people are saying, and getting to the point that I was going to raise, and I know, just as being a board member, that there's nothing we can do about that tonight or this week. One thing that I would like to put a pin in the board for is looking at the possibility of increasing the courtesy busing that we offer across the district.
Always promised myself and the public that I would never sit up here and lie to benefit anyone. I was there along with the superintendent and 2 other board members the opening day of school, and I was very disappointed as well. I taught preschool for 15 years before I went to the welfare board, so preschool is what I know. I do know that parents adore their little ones. You know, if it's one thing short when it comes to a preschooler, parents are very upset. Now, as they get to middle school and high school, they can walk 3 miles to school, but not their babies. So I got it when I got there and I saw the long line of parents standing at the door and not able to take their children in. That would make anybody upset. It's almost like you're walking into a haunted house and you have nobody there to protect you. Not saying that people there are mean, but just saying the thought of children being with someone that they never saw before. Any board member that was with me that day knew that I was not satisfied, along with the superintendent, because I know preschool. But I could assure you, when I went to the school today, I left feeling much better, because parents were able to walk their children directly to the classroom. And with anything, you just want to know who you're entrusting your children to for the rest of the day as well as the rest of the school year. As far as buses, I was behind the bus this morning on my way to J.C. Stewart, and I texted Dr. Taylor to find out, you know, about the bus moving slow, but I do realize it was raining. So what I had said to one parent is, you would want the bus to take their time. I understand if the bus gets lost, you know, they're figuring new things out or whatever, but you want the buses to take their time getting to school, because no parent wants to get a phone call that the bus had an accident because they're rushing to get the children to school. So that was one of my main concerns, that yes, they took their time. It may have been, I had friends personally that put their children on the bus and then drove to the school to meet the bus. And when I got there, they was like pointing to their watch, and I said, do you want that bus to rush and kill your children? And that's exactly what I said. And she looked at me and said, I'm always straightforward. I will never sugarcoat anything for anyone. But today I felt much better. There was a calmness that was in the school. You did have about 10 parents that were waiting in line, but it was nothing like Friday. We're always trying to tweak things out in the district. You know, proper protocol is that when something doesn't work out, you contact the building principal. First, you talk to the teacher. If it doesn't seem to get straightened out with the teacher, you contact the building principal. If you can't get an answer from the building principal, you go to the assistant superintendent. If the assistant superintendent doesn't have the answer, you take it to the superintendent. And a lot of times I want to address, somebody said, vote for people, don't vote for people you know. But well, unfortunately, there's 9 board members, and it takes 5 board members to pass a vote. So unless you vote for 5 people that you know that are going to do what you want them to do, and it doesn't always work like that. I have family in the district. Most of the board members saw my sister has 5 kids. She had 1 at Levitt, she has 2 at Hawthorne, she has 1 at J.C. Stewart. When I was there, I know several kids that have to take their children all over the place. Oh, and by the way, my sister also teaches in Trenton, so she had to figure out how to get all of her children to school and get to work, and she didn't complain, because she knows sometimes you have to multitask as a parent. That's just like having 4 kids and they all play sports on different teams. You want to make sure they get to those various teams to play that sport. But I do want to let you know that as board members, I'm going to speak for myself. I take into consideration everything that is said at that microphone, be it good, bad, or indifferent. I listen to what you have to say, and I contact Dr. Taylor. I may even speak to other board members to see what we can do to make the change. And my prayer is that moving forward, the rest of the days will be better than the first day.